All right, today I'm going to be talking about unique addresses, active addresses. I'll be talking about the good, the bad, and a whole lot of the ugly. All right, so I'm going to cover really why they're misleading. There was a lot of discussion, I think, at DuneCon today about active addresses, so just going to briefly touch on that, and then I'm going to move on to really what are some alternatives that we can be using? What are some better metrics outside of this basic growth metric that everybody seems to default to? And then once we've covered those, I'll kind of run through some case studies of these alternative methods, and I'm going to end with some future predictions, just with how fast this industry is moving. I think it's important that we as analysts kind of stay nimble and adjust with it. All right, so why are active addresses misleading? I think most of us in the room, if we're an analyst, we understand that active addresses are filled with a lot of noise. And if you are a reader of a lot of charts, they might interpret this as a single address is equal to a user or a person. So, if a reader sees a chart that there's 300 million active addresses on a single day, they might see this as, wow, this is a lot of impressive adoption, that's a lot of users, and that's not quite the case. And there's this phrase called improper education leads to false representation. And I think there's a little bit of responsibility on us as analysts to make sure that we're kind of educating the readers when we put out data like this. So that kind of covers the marketing side of things. And I think what's even more important is when we're using this data to make internal business decisions. And again, classic phrase, garbage in, garbage out. If we are making critical business decisions based on active addresses, which has a lot of noise, you're going to have a bad time. All right, so what can we be doing instead of active addresses? I thought it'd be helpful to break this down into 3 different levels based on sort of your skill set or your time allocation or budget that you have as an analyst. If you are at the apprentice level, build an active address chart, learn the details of it, understand why everybody uses it, and then hopefully through that you'll understand why there's so much noise involved with it. The data's not wrong at all. There's just a lot of noise that needs to be segmented. So that leads to the next level. I call it the wizard level. And this is seeing a lot more adoption. I'm seeing a lot of people using this. It's address segmentation by value. So we'll see address segmentation by fees, volume, some scenario of that. I know Andrew Hong and a lot of the OG Dune wizards have really been moving towards something like this. The Blockworks team, I see this on their dashboards all the time. So it's good to see this getting a lot of adoption and us moving towards this as a better alternative. But most of my talk today is going to be on this third step, this arch wizard level. And this is what I'm sort of calling address segmentation by address quality score. And I'm going to go in a lot more detail on this, but just to give you a quick overview, really every single address on the blockchain has a full on-chain history, and not just on a single chain. Like we saw from Rob's last presentation, we have all these layer 2s. We have this whole EVM ecosystem that we can look at a chain's full or an address's full history, what type of protocols they've interacted with, how much fees they've paid over time. So we can use all this data and aggregate it into a model and give a single address a quality score. All right, so let's run through some of these. I said active addresses about 1 million times, so I figured I had to at least show the chart once. This is the classic chart I think we've all seen 1 million times. 30 million active accounts, on that last week. Really impressive data. If we move on then from that to sort of that wizard level where we segment it, here we're looking at Solana DEX traders segmented by lifetime volume. So if we do it this way, we see a better image of what's going on here, and we can see that close to 90% of the users have transacted less than $10 in lifetime value. So we're getting a much better picture of what's going on here. And then sticking on that wizard level, just to kind of showcase another address segmentation, here we're segmenting by fees paid, lifetime fees paid. See a similar trend, close to 90% here have transacted less than 1 cent, which I think equates to like around 5 lifetime transactions. It kind of depends, but again, much better picture of what's going on here. All right, to the fun stuff. So this arch wizard level, what are we doing here? So again, like I said, We can look at a single address and look at its full history on multiple chains. We can look at their transaction frequency. We can look at their total volume. We can look at the protocol diversity of what they've interacted with. I think a really important thing to look at here is also we can look at their socials. Do they have a Farcaster ID or an ENS? And we can aggregate all this data into a really nice model and come up with a quality score, where 0 being the lowest quality user, where maybe they've transacted once and then emptied the account, and 100% being the highest quality user. So let's run through a couple case studies here on how this provides so much value and more insight into your data. So here we're looking at base network, looking at transacting addresses segmented by quality score. If we look at this chart and we kind of ignore the segmentation for a second, and you're an internal analyst for a team and you're presenting this to your leadership and you're saying, hey, look, month over month we're seeing really impressive growth. Everything you're doing is perfect, don't change a thing. We see here a peak in September, everything looks perfect. And on this next graph, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna remove most of these low quality users. I'm gonna just isolate the high quality users, and we're gonna see a much different graph. We previously saw that spike in September. Here we're seeing a local low, and here we have the main spike, or our high in April. So, if you're making business decisions, you're making impactful presentations to show how your product is doing, this is the type of data you want to be looking at. You want to be extracting a lot of that noise that's giving you misleading data like we see here. So this is why this segmentation by quality score can be so valuable. Now I'm going to run through another case study. We're going to stick on base, and we're going to look at DEX here. So if we segment by quality score, again, see a common trend here where majority of these transacting addresses are really, really low quality. And then if we remove the lower quality, isolate the high quality users, we've got a much different graph here. And this graph actually corresponds with the general DeFi activity that we see on most other chains, where we did kind of spike early in this year in spring, and then we slowed down over summer. Now we're starting to uptick again. And I also want to highlight, using this quality score, if we compare it to that wizard level where we're segmenting by value, that's sort of looking at an address's value on a single chain. And here we're looking at their full history across all chains, so we get a much better picture. We're not isolated, just looking at their activity on base. All right, third case study. Who here has used FriendTech, or used it, I should say? Okay, yeah, that's quite a few. Who's still using it? All right, that's kind of what I thought. Yeah, here's a really good example of kind of showcasing how, FriendTech had, obviously the airdrop, so they had some incentives there. And if you look at their growth, without the address quality score segmentation, it looks like they had really impressive growth here. But what we're actually seeing when we segment it, majority of that growth was low quality users, mostly airdrop farmers here. And then I'll let you guys guess when that airdrop ended and the incentive ended for them. And what's really impressive is that number went to basically 0 the following month after that incentive disappeared. So again, a really good way to look at our data, even when we have incentives that provide, we'll say, unwanted behavior on the protocol. All right, through this quality score and Farcaster then, and I've analyzed quite a few protocols using this quality score. Farcaster actually has one of the best distributions that I've seen. I have this sort of top level, the 99 to 100, that's like that top 1%, highest quality users across all EVM chains in this model. And they have one of the highest, I'd say, sections there, number of high value users. So this was really impressive to see. And I just want to kind of expand on the versatility of using this quality score. Today I've kind of just really hammered down how we can look at active addresses, but this can be used across sort of all growth metrics. We can then we can just isolate our quality users and look at their transaction habits. We can look at their retention. We can look at cohorts. And I think more importantly, we've also been exploring kind of using this data to help with user acquisition. We kind of know, I'm going to jump out a bunch of slides here, so I apologize. The way we've kind of built this model is, we know who the top 1% of perpetuals users are. We can kind of have like these individual sectors as well and really understand. And say you're a perpetuals protocol and you want to analyze your data. Are you growing the pie? Are you stealing share from other perpetual protocols? There's just really a lot that we can do with this. All right, sorry, I'm jumping back to where I was. Okay, I think I ended there. Okay, and so I want to end with some future predictions. The reason that this quality score was created is really just it's this never-ending cat and mouse game of trying to eliminate the noise and extract the valuable data here. And I think this is going to continue forever. I think especially with the rise of like AI agents and stuff like that, we are going to see a lot more behavior that we're going to need to isolate and understand. So we need to keep adjusting our metrics that we're using and kind of staying on our toes here. Yeah, and I also think like with the hyper efficiency of chains, the cost to transact is kind of decreasing more and more. And so this might lead to more and more bot behavior or misaligned activity that some protocols might not want to see, which is just going to create a lot more noise for us analysts to be able to showcase the real data underneath. All right, that is all I had today. If anybody had any questions?
Somewhat provocative question. I love the quality score. Very nice graphic there.
Thank you.
How do you get that graphic onto a Dune dashboard?
Ooh, how can we make it happen?
Where's Arne? We'll see. We'll see.
Yeah,
new visualizations are always a pain, but we're working on it.
Yeah. I got to give props to my visual. He created the graphic here. This is Jacob, co-founder at Slice Analytics as well. Yeah, that's all his doing. All right.
When you're working on building these filters to clean data, what are some things you take into consideration?
Yeah, that's a great question. And really what I wish is that this was a one-size-fit-all model that we could build and that everybody can use. And I think it is to some capacity, but the truth is like you need to understand as a protocol what you deem is valuable. Some protocols might deem other things more valuable than others. Some things that pop in mind would be like Tron. If we applied this on Tron, we might see that most users are just transacting stable coins, and they might not have as many perpetuals and stuff like that. So you need to kind of be critical on what you deem as quality. In our case here, really, we look at transaction frequency, total fees paid, volume as like some just generic ones. Then we look at multi-chain, how many chains have you transacted on, and then we have all these sectors that we've sort of built a score around. So it really is extensive here. And I do want to give a shout out to Dune. I'd say about a year or two ago, this would have been an insane engineering overhaul, but their labels and their data sets has made this a lot easier and more manageable that I think any data team could really come up with their own simplified model like this. This one in particular, we've used with a couple of protocols a little bit more in depth, yeah, for the most part.
If this is too spicy to share, it's okay, but I'm curious if you've been able to compare any L2s and see which one has higher quality or lower quality users?
Oh yeah, I got you. I don't have anything to share here, but if you go to that, I don't know how we can get the link to everybody, but basically I have a dashboard. I'll share it on Twitter after this, and I actually have basically every EVM chain that Dune has as a drop-down, and then you can look at their active addresses over time. So yeah, that was like one of the first things I thought about. I'm like, I want to look at every chain and see how they're doing. So yeah.
Just a quick one. Based on your future predictions and as this data mature, where do you see like agents or AI agents come into play here?
Yeah, I think like we're right on the precipice of what that is actually going to look like, and I'm really excited for it. I think in some cases, it's going to be a desirable user. Protocols are going to be built, and they want a lot a lot of that activity. And I think it's, yeah, to be honest, I don't know. I don't know what that's going to look like. All I know is like a data analyst, when I'm always looking at data and extracting and understanding it, I know it's something coming and something we need to be prepared to build models for. So I'm excited to see how this comes to fruition. All right. Any last questions?
I guess not. Give it up for Tim again.
Thanks, everyone.